Hello, everyone. Starting to trickle in, and we're going to go live. Here we go. And I believe we're live. Hello, everyone in Facebook land and Property Development Australia. Welcome to the Business of Property. And I have some wonderful guests here today, Hilary Saxton and Bob Anderson. I actually am quite sure quite a few of you in this group and in this community are familiar with who these two are. If you don't, they are from Property Mastermind. And thank you very much for the both of you for sparing some time to have a chat with us today. We've got a very interesting topic about educators or spruikers. I thought that might raise a few eyebrows here. So, Bob, you have been quite, I was going to say, an institution in terms of the, and I mean that in the most, in the best way, because you've been at this educating people for a long time. So tell us a little bit about sort of how it all started, you know, and everything, and where you are now. And I'd love to hear, obviously, Hilary, your story as to how you got involved with Property Mastermind as well.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. On the education front, it started for me in about 2006, I think, when I wrote a book on property development, because I couldn't find a good book out there that showed you actually how to do it. It told you what it was, but it didn't show you how to do it. And that was pre-GFC. So I did that. I wrote a book and launched it in the States, mainly because I thought, well, there's 320 million entrepreneurs over there. So I launched it over there. $99 US, I remember it was. And it went gangbusters. Surprisingly, it was just a bit of an experiment and a bit of fun for me. But Google and Borders, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, everybody picked it up. And things were flying along brilliantly until the GFC, and then nobody was interested in property over there for a while. But it got me interested, because I've been a developer since the early 80s, actually. So I've been a property developer for all those years, or over 20 years before I actually ever got involved in the education. But I got serious about it in about 2009, 2010, when I built a course and launched it, and it's been fun ever since. So I got my feet in two camps. I still develop quite a lot, and but also the education thing's given me a great deal of satisfaction. The property development's given me a reasonable amount of money, but satisfaction in the education side, I never realised I would. But the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. The more I enjoyed it, the more I did it. Here we are today. So yeah, it's an exciting thing. I love it. I love sharing my knowledge. I love watching people. When I say develop, I mean I love watching people develop property, but I love watching people develop themselves as well, and develop it as a business, do it successfully, make money, change their lives, change the lives of their family, people around them. And also some of the people I'm more involved in, particularly in my high-level mentoring program, is giving back as well to the community, because you know I think if you do well out of a project, it's always good to. I like to give a chunk back, and I know a lot of people agree with that. It's a great thing to do.
And just on that, because you have been developing for such a long time, but like to then say, because it's, you know, it's busy when you develop, to set up a course and educate and mentor other people as well adds another layer to busyness. But what was the main thing that motivated you to say, I want to be able to share this with other people?
Yeah, well, initially it was the book. That was back in about 2006, because my son Luke had joined me. He'd come out of university, and he came to join my business, which was a property development business at the time. And he didn't study property at uni. He studied business management. But I thought, how do I give him a quick education? Although he'd heard about property his whole life, that was a conversation at the dining room for all those years, and he knew a bit about it. I looked around and I couldn't find a decent book. Nothing. I just really couldn't find much at all. And it got me thinking. And then I thought, you know what, maybe we should write one. And so I did, with help from him in those early years, and wrote a book on on how to do property development. It was only a book at the time, so there wasn't any direct contact with people. But it got me, just the whole writing of the book, it took stuff out of my head. And in those days, it just went onto paper. But it started that thing, and I really enjoyed it. And we did a couple of tours off the back of the book, went really well in the States. Then eventually back here through the Australian Property Investor magazine, you might remember, which was around until about 5 years ago. It was the only one for a long time.
We used to subscribe to that and actually get hard copies.
I was,
we've got a couple of books over there in the bookshelf too.
Yeah, we have got. I've got a few old copies there. Talking about Spruikers, it's great to go back through some of those old magazines and see some of the full page ads that were in there, and people that were there in a flash and gone in a flash.
Yeah.
That's another story, but yeah. So I got really serious about it in 2009-10. Built a course, and then out of the back of the course came a 3-day workshop, and out of the back of the 3-day workshop came a mentoring program, and it just sort of developed organically, and so I spent the rest of that time sharpening. But there's always something a little bit missing, and I knew it, but I couldn't do much about it. And that is, every so often I'd run into people who might have bought my course a few years earlier, and I'd say, "Oh, what are you doing?" And sometimes, you find people that haven't done anything. And for somebody who's actually gone to a lot of trouble, build a course, to hear that somebody didn't do anything with it is sort of a little bit disappointing in a way. And I know a lot of people in the industry. I know a lot of educators. In fact, I've educated a lot of the educators. And
all but two,
all but two, I think, in Australia. But the thing is, it happens with every course. It doesn't matter how good the course is. There's people that get enthusiastic about it. They jump in, they buy it. The enthusiasm can wane fast, it can wane slow. Life gets in the way. And they just don't achieve it, which is really sad, because they started off with a goal, with good intentions. They invested in their education, and in a lot of cases it didn't come to anything. And that made me realise. I realised the problem was that people let life get in the way. Their job took over, their relationship took over, kids took over, illness took over, moving took over, all sorts of things. There's always dog got run over. There was always an excuse, but they couldn't prioritise. And it was when I met Hilary and became involved with what she does that it all changed. And then I was able to integrate, and she can tell you, I suppose, in a moment what she does, but able to integrate her training into what I was doing and fix that issue, fix that problem.
So over to you, the missing link. Hilary.
I think you did a really good job before I came along. I think that, and people, it's interesting because Bob writes emails, and obviously it has a bit more of my influence now, and he can get to a weekly email he sends out, he can get 15 replies, and people just go, that's unheard of. Most people, you're lucky if they even open them. So the influence, I suppose the change, that the link that I've put in is just adding a bit more of what goes on for people, and making it more about the personal journey, not just about, which is ironic because I do profiling and I'm very logical as a person. So my coaching is very logical as well. It's sort of more step by step, but it's just encompassing that side of the whole person, because, health, wealth, relationships, those three are everyone's major. I mean, I've worked with 18-year-olds, 80-year-olds, and men, women, successful, not successful, everybody. So I do know that's, that once you add the person issue, then people can sort of progress and move forward. So yeah, we've just changed we really have just changed the whole, but the process is the same. The feel is different, I think. And also I come with, my thing is over and above service. So always giving over and above what people expect they're going to get. So, if someone emails, I'll just call them. They'll be like, "Oh my God, is that you guys?" I'm like, yeah. So always just offering more, always over deliver, always.
Yeah. And tell us a bit about your background, Hilary, and sort of it's that you've been actually trained in coaching and all of that. So tell us a bit more about that, so we have an idea of where this knowledge comes from.
I'm a serial learner, so I can't help myself, not out of a cereal box. I have to learn all the time. I began about 12 years ago actually coaching, but I've always been an entrepreneur and worked for myself. So I've started businesses, manufacturing companies, training schools. I began in the health and fitness industry. I'm a nutritionist. Like, I used to be 100 kilos. So my journey's been about educating myself on the way. And I started in property at 18 by myself. And so I was always mucking around with property myself, even like as a single mum, and I still would buy and sell properties on my own, and buy, hold for a while, sell, and then I'll do the odd renovation, and I just was interested in property. But then coaching, when I did my coaching through the neuro leadership group, so it's a brain-based style, so it's getting people to think better. But on top of that, I've added like a depth of lots of different modes that I know and have learned, like profiling, or just understanding lots of different tools when it comes to coaching. So I have a kind of, it's not one size fits all. I coach people very differently because we're all different. So I coach how they need to be coached. Yeah, so then once Bob and I got talking, even though we were working side by side in the same office for a year before, we thought, oh, we should do this together. Yeah. So I was coaching and then he was doing property, and then we started merging me with mostly the mentoring students, but now it's just sort of growing arms and legs on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, so fantastic. And what have you found in the time you've come through with this sort of the mindset side of things? What are the top 3 things that are holding people back from being able to go, I'm going to take this and this education that I've paid, good money for, and actually take action? What are the things that are stopping people?
Number 1 would be confidence. They really want to, but they don't think they can. So they start with a hiss and a roar, and they leave a workshop, or they're just fired with enthusiasm. But then like 2 days later, they start questioning themselves, and that usually just means there's a little bit of a knowledge gap. They're not remembering enough or something. So that's the solution, I suppose. But yeah, confidence would be first. The second one is just like Bob mentioned, because that's a Hilaryism. Life just gets in the way, and we have to learn to take like the barriers or the things as on the way and not in the way. Yeah. And what happens is we get distracted, and we all do it. I do it. It's just normal life. But when you have someone working beside you, it's, you can help push past those. And I suppose the third thing would probably be they have not got enough support. Like the person, like Bob and I work together so well. We support each other really well. But I think if you've got people around you, whether that's your family or your partner, and they don't have to be into it, but if they can support you, and that just makes it so much easier, because I so often hear men and women say to me, oh, you're so lucky, like my partner just doesn't get it, he or she doesn't want to do it, and it really slows the other person down.
Yeah. And so how do you, in your mentoring, address those 3?
Well, I start by addressing them because people, number 1, like, you just got to acknowledge that it's happening, and often people don't even realize that's what the problem is. So once you actually bring it and say, this is what I can see, or how do you feel about this, or or they'll can actually tell me, but they don't realize it's a problem. So we start by looking at it, and then I just come and ask them, because a brain-based way, when you're told to do something, not like property when you're learning a system, but when you're told something like that, you actually need to come to your own resolution. So I'm properly trained in getting people to come and getting them to tell me what they will do. When it's not like a logical thing, when it's not like systemized, when I need to say, well, how do you think you could get this person on board to doing it with you? If they can't come up with something, I can offer solutions, that because I've worked with like hundreds and hundreds of people in like 12 years of coaching, so I know enough, but I'll try and get them to tell me first, or I'll say, these are some options, which sounds best to you. Then I just say, like, so how are you going to do that? And I really push for an implementation plan, like, when will you do it, how will you do it, and then we check in like a week later, how did that go, are you doing it?
Yeah. And so you've got, tell us a little bit more about the different options of being able to learn from you. So you mentioned you started off with the three-day workshops, and it's evolved since then.
Yeah, so it has. So what we have at the moment, we have a membership site, which is, well, as I say, less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day. So that particular site's a membership site, monthly, come, leave when you like. But it has had 4 courses. So I got an extremely comprehensive property development course. Hilary's got a renovation course. I've got a creative strategies course in there that teaches people how to do deals with little or no money, and a small subdivision course. And then, of course, you've got your whole mindset course in there as well. So 5 different courses in that.
Yeah, you said 4, didn't you?
Did I say 4?
I meant 5. I think it's 5.
So,
yeah.
you know, even if you can't count, you can do well at property development. It just goes to show you. Even if you can't count to 5. Look, I've got...
As long as you've got someone that is good at the numbers,
I
right?
know the difference between 4 and 5.
I actually call him Google, Cheryl. He knows, honestly, this man knows everything.
I just can't count.
Oh, you can.
And lots of other goodies in there, weekly Q&As, the whole box and dice, Facebook, everything's in there. That's a membership site, just monthly site. I've got an online course for people that want a top quality course for developing up front. So that's my property development online course. Video based, a lot of downloadables. Also got a 3-day workshop that we would normally run live in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, but of course we can't. So next month we're going to run our online version of a 3-day workshop. Then we do have a bundle where you can get all 3 courses at a pretty substantial discount. For people who have come through and doing well, we do have a private mentoring group, but by application. I only have very limited numbers, and that's where people work closely with us personally on a day-to-day basis, and we work through people, not only the education, the high-level education, but also work on projects with them as well. So
yeah,
different levels, different layers.
And I think, I mean, where did that sort of that monthly subscription, sort of, for want of a better word, course, and that's quite unique. I mean, there's a lot of content in there. I've had a few people who I've spoken to sign up to that, and they think it's fantastic. How much sort of interaction is there with the both of you?
With the 2 of us?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, you can your interactions. What do you do each month?
It feels like there's a lot. Well, we're live on there like every week with a Q&A, so that's every Monday at the moment. We do with the Facebook pages. So we have a Facebook page, but then just recently we've taken all of the stuff and taken it into the platform as well with just the courses. So the stuff that goes on Facebook is Bob's Deal or No Deals. I don't know. Have you seen him do those?
Yes, I have actually.
Yeah, so the whole Deal or No Deals, everything's gone into the platform and Facebook for the people that don't like Facebook.
Yeah, not everybody likes Facebook.
Yeah, we've just realised that a few people that weren't into it. So, but yeah, there's a lot of interaction. Just there is people ask email questions, or they ask on the page, or there's plenty.
Constantly stuff happening there, but really high level education. You know, I've been doing property development for 38 years, would you believe? I was still in nappies when I did my first project, but
I probably was too.
I was in nappies. There was someone in nappies.
Hilary was in my first project. That's right. Get it right, Bob. So, you know, I've been through 5 property cycles. I've done well over $1 billion worth of projects. I've been around a long time. So that's sort of what I've been able to do. And I've developed in every state except Northern Territory. Haven't done one in Northern Territory yet. Not in a hurry to, probably. Yeah, so I got a lot of years, a lot of it, a lot of projects, small, anything from splitters to you name it. Even at the moment, smallest projects are splitter. Largest ones are retirement village. So
there's a big scope there.
Big scope, yeah. I mean, if it makes money, I'm interested.
Well, I did drag him to New Zealand at Christmas and made him do a reno with me. He wasn't that.
That was punishment.
Was it under the guise of a holiday?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, working holiday, all right. It wasn't much holiday. Oh, a little bit at the end. I think we had about a week off at the end, but that was fun. Just got back before COVID. We could have been living there otherwise.
Yeah,
it's not a bad place to be stuck in New Zealand.
So the memberships only launched it 2 or 3 months ago, but it's been going really well, really popular. A lot of great content, lots of interaction between people.
Tons of women. Not that it's all women, but like there's there's a reasonable amount of women in there, which is nice.
Oh, lots, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, you'd see it on your own from your own experience. A number of ladies involved in property development.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it. Love seeing women in property. So we've got a few people here that have said, hi, g'day sports fans. That's for Sean. Good of Sean.
Number 3 we call him. Number
Yeah,
3.
Luke Maroney loves Spruikers. He's probably not referring to
No,
to you guys. So let's talk about that title. You know, we get a lot of people that come into the community and are constantly looking up for guidance, for mentoring, courses, coaches. And the number one thing is around that confidence, even when they're choosing the right people. What are the key things that really set you apart, and the both of you apart, from the people that are, and I'm not saying there are spruikers out there. There's some that are spruikers. There are quite a few very legitimate educators that do great things. What do people need to look out for?
Well, I think
good marketing companies.
You're getting back to the 5-minute hero we see a lot these days, you know, on Instagram and Facebook. People, I guess, you know, to avoid that, because that's the thing about, you know, the internet and social media these days. It's quite different from years gone by, where people sort of came up through the ranks, if you like, and earned their stripes. And, you know, but these days with, you know, Facebook, social media, Instagram, those sort of things, if somebody who mightn't be, let me say, 100% legitimate, has a good marketing company behind them, they can take quite a high profile. And you know, that's what we're up against these days, is to try and understand, you know, who are the more trustworthy ones from those that might be, you know, cardboard cutouts, you might say.
But even someone can say, for a new person, if somebody says, oh, I've done like, you know, $3 million worth of developments. We were talking about it today. Bob was telling me a story. We were just walking the dog, and we were talking about somebody years ago, and they'd written in a magazine, they'd written an article for a magazine, and the magazine had contacted Bob because they knew him and said, isn't this you? And this person had said, I'm involved in this deal, I'm doing so much. This person had like a small share in one of the apartments of a 13-block apartment building, but you can make it sound like you've done more than you have by twisting the words around. And
you've got to be careful. But I think the sort of things you look for is people are actually practicing what it is that they're educating on. Because there are some people who have education material or courses that haven't really done it, or done very little. I knew of one fellow that was running some workshops in property development, still hasn't done a project yet. Maybe one day he will. So I think that they need to be in the field that they're teaching and currently in it, doing it. I think that longevity is important. That sort of gets rid of what I call the 5-minute heroes. So how long is, the sort of questions, how long have you been doing it? If it happens to be something like property development, when did you do your first development? How many have you done? What's the dollar value? Where have you done them? Some people have only done in one little spot. Some people haven't done a lot. So you get some people who may have done a small amount of projects in one spot, maybe even in the good part of a property cycle where, you know, even my pet dog could make money. And so I think...
Smart dog.
Yeah,
I need one of those dogs.
Well,
she's asleep on the floor, right?
That dog bought a property in Sydney in 2012 and sold it in 2017. So the dog did well. Didn't do much, just didn't die. But so I think being in the field, longevity in the field, a spread in terms of what they've done and dollar value, I think they're big things. So it sounds like I'm setting up myself, but I mean, you know, 38 years in development, over $1 billion, all states except one, and a diversity of developments as well. You know, property development, it's big dollars involved. You can make a lot of money, but you know, do it badly and you can lose money, of course. That's the flip side of making a lot of money, is you can lose a lot of money, I suppose, if you do it badly. And if you're going to be educated by somebody, find somebody with the most diverse experience you can, because every project you do is different. Every part of the market's different. Different parts of Australia behave differently. And you need that, I think you need that sort of broad base of experience, as opposed to, you know, a very short amount of experience in one spot, maybe during one part of a property cycle or something like that. It's just important to get it wrong.
And what was your first project?
My first project.
And when was it?
Oh,
I don't know if were you given the date.
well, I did say Hilary was in nappies. I had to be a bit right. I think it was 1982.
Right.
I wasn't in nappies in 1982.
Oh, that was on the Gold Coast actually, and I'd moved to the Gold Coast because I was involved in a fairly serious car accident not long before that. Had best part of 2 years off, was on crutches for a year.
Wow.
So I came out of that pretty well broke, as you can imagine. So I headed off to the Gold Coast to make my fortune, not realising that's where a lot of people go to lose it. But anyway, I went there and I did get involved in property. So I went there with the intention of becoming a property developer, actually. And this is a decision I made when I was lying on my back, recuperating. And so I worked, I couldn't get straight into development because there wasn't a channel for doing that, no educational courses. I got a job with a real estate agency that sold a lot of land subdivisions, got to meet developers, got to sell land, watch land get built, learn a lot from developers and, surveyors and everybody. And my first deal was one that came through the office, was a 4-lot subdivision. And I spoke to the owner of it. The fellow came in, he bought a property off us, and about 4 or 5 months later, he came back in and listed it for sale. He'd gotten a development approval for 4 lots, but he decided to sell it. He was just too busy. And I got talking to him, and we had quite a long conversation. And I told him my aspirations of being a property developer. And I told him, this is the thing that actually, sometimes you have something that just in your life, it's what I call a watershed moment. Mm. And this one sentence changed my life. And I said to him, I'd love to develop that property you've got for sale, but I just don't have enough money. I don't even almost know what prompted me to say it. We're just having a good conversation. And he said, well, you don't need money to develop that. And he took me under his wing. It's what we would currently call a vendor finance deal. Actually took me off to his bank, arranged finance. I paid him half the money for the block. I owed him the other half in interest. Out of the loan, which is an 80% loan, I was able to cover the development costs, sold the land off, paid the bank back, paid him back his other half, and left with a chunk of money. What we typically call a vendor finance deal. I didn't know what it was called back in those days. And it actually, he taught me how to do it. And as it turned out, this guy was quite a sophisticated property player on the Gold Coast. He used to amalgamate development sites for builders. He knew all about options, amalgamation, sales, and development. And that was it. That got me going. And the next deal I did was with my brother-in-law, which was a joint venture where he put the money in, and I was away. So my first 2 deals, I didn't spend 5 cents.
Fantastic.
And I honestly didn't really know much about what I was doing. It was pretty dangerous.
You always say you were bulletproof and dangerous.
Well, when you're young like that and you're full of, you just come out of a bad situation with a car accident, all you can think about is making money because you're broke when you start off.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and you don't even know what you don't know. And that's what I say while I was dangerous. But a little bit of luck, a little bit of, people taking me under their wing and learning by trial and error. Not the best way to learn, but no alternative. And sort of went from there.
And at that time, and you mentioned as well, there wasn't anyone that was teaching.
No, it wasn't.
You had to look for someone that was willing to take you on.
Yeah, that's right.
You weren't even looking; it was just accidental, wasn't it?
Well, it's sort of accidental, but I mean, there was no, as far as property development goes, there was no degrees at uni. There was no land economics, no property development. There's no courses. There's nothing you could do. There was no books. Really, it was trial and error. It was sort of looking at other people's projects and trying to reverse engineer them. Work out, well, what did they do? How did they get them built? What's it cost to build them? What do they pay for, the land? And of course, back in those days, there was no technology. You couldn't jump onto RP data and have a look at what they paid for it. You couldn't hop on to any of the other portals that we've got and sort of reverse engineer stuff like you could now. It's just asking lots of questions and just, as you said, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. No fear, just jump in. And obviously there was some casualties. I made it.
You had a couple of close runs though.
I had a couple of close runs, a few bumps,
Had a few speed bumps.
Yeah. Found out about the Gold Coast.
Eventually.
Highs and lows.
If you didn't have lows in that close to 40 years, that would have been a miracle, really. And that's the other thing as well. Like, how different is property development from when you first started to where you are now?
Look, the steps that you go through to do a development haven't really changed. You know, you have to look at land, you have to do due diligence, you have to crunch numbers. You know, you've got to get a development permit, you've got to get a building permit, got to get it built, get it sold. So in the respect, the steps are the same. What the one massive difference would be technology. I just touched on that a moment ago. Because there was no technology. All my early projects, I did manual feasibilities, like a handwritten profit and loss statement. You know, sale prices, less costs, you know, less land, you know, stamp duty legals, less, you know, architect's fees, structure.
So little calculator.
Well, the calculator was, I used the calculator to add up the numbers.
But honestly, Cheryl, you should see him now. He can actually pretty much do that anyway in his head. Like he you know, does have the calculator, but he pretty much knows what it's going to be before he calculates
I can smell a deal in a few seconds.
Yeah, he's like, no, not going to work.
Yeah, but
how do you know?
Back in those days, like no technology, so everything was a lot slower. You know, you wanted to do search. If you wanted to look at a title search, you had to go into the city. You had to go to the government office. You had to fill in a form. And then come back the next day, and then they'd have a paper copy of it. You know, like that's what you did to get a title search. Now you got one in like 20 seconds, you know. So, but being able to use computers, computer programs. I didn't start using computers to do feasibilities until probably 1989, way before Windows. We had things back there called DOS and Lotus 123, which, you know, some of the old people might remember watching.
Is that in black and white? IO.
Screen share, all those, yeah. So, but look, the biggest difference has been that technology, and what it's done, it's given us a lot of information fast. When you think about it now, how you can jump on your phone, you know, you can pull up in front of a site, you can hop on there, you can pull out, you know, you can pull out RP data, you can pull out Archistar, you can pull out Investar, you can pull out council websites, you can jump on, you can see where all the services are, dial before you dig. You might even have a hook up to the council, where you can see even the size of pipes and the depth and all the stuff you really don't even need to know, but an engineer would. You can look at recent sales, you know, you can go on Google Earth and you can see what's, like, it's just amazing. All off a telephone in front of a block of land. I mean, it's just unbelievable compared to what it was in the early days. Funny thing is, even though I did manual feasibilities, even though I had to run around town with bits of paper and run from the architects to the engineers with scrolls of paper.
You would have loved it.
I still made good money out of property development. My second project, I paid 23% interest for the money. Still made good profit at 23% interest. So, yeah, so lots of changes over the years. I've seen interest rates run from, I suppose, retail rates now down around 2. There was a fixed rate recently with a 1 in front of it that I saw, but you know, commercial loans in 5s or 6s. I paid 23%. You know, survived all of those times. GFC, you know, the great recession we had to have in 1991, where, you know, unemployment was 11.4%. The dot-com crash. I mean, I've been through so many ups and downs and crashes, but always made money in all different markets. You know, because things are never all bad and they're never all good in any particular market.
So let's talk about that, because we're going through some interesting times. Don't know if you've noticed. Having gone through all those dips and, you know, the recessions, you didn't go through Spanish flu, but, you know, we've gone through some, what are, you know, where do you think we're going, and how do investors or developers brace themselves in the current environment?
Well, I think nobody's can absolutely predict the future, obviously. So, I mean, so what we've got to do is, we have got to look at, you know, was there anything similar in the past? Not absolutely. I lean a lot on numbers. I mean, I'm an analytical person. I'm a developer. Even in the developments I do, they're all about numbers, nothing else, really numbers, no emotion. When it first happened, I did quite a lot of writing, quite a lot of emails. I was pumping out an email a day for probably about 2 months there for a while at the beginning of it, because there's a lot of panic out there. I was just trying to calm people down. And say, you know, for a start, don't make, you know, property's a long-term game. Don't make short-term decisions, rash decisions. When we saw lots of scary stuff out there, but you had to look at what was behind it. I remember people saying, "Oh, property's going to drop 30%." Well, that's something the CBA said, but you had to look at what was around that. They said, well, look, if the government doesn't come good, if there's, everything goes to putty, there's no help anywhere, it could hit 30, could hit 20. Well, that was never going to happen. The government had to step in, and they did. And so if you look at property, if you look at the months, I like to look at March, April, May, June, July, 5 months. So 5 months of COVID. If you look at every capital city, average it out, it's dropped 0.8 to 1%. Now that's all called logic numbers, which I'm quite happy to back call logic numbers. That's not out of a newspaper, it's not on a TV station. The first 2 months of COVID, March and April, property prices went up nationally. The last 3 months they've dropped. Melbourne, hit the bottom about -3.5 at the moment for the last quarter, but that's what's 3.5.
Bob actually analyses them every month.
But 0.8 to 1% nationally, so that's what property prices. But nationally is nationally, so you've got to look at states. Some states have come out a bit better. I mean, look at the ACT, look at Adelaide as well. ACT is only last month hit a whole new high, a whole new record property in the ACT. Adelaide hit a high as well 5 months into COVID. So a couple of the cities, Sydney's had a bit of a upcut. Sydney's down 2.3, and Melbourne's in the high twos, down 3.5 for the quarter. But remember, 2 of those months during COVID, Melbourne went up before it went down. So, I study numbers a lot. So what's happening? Well, after things sort of settled down and nothing much was happening. In fact, the first couple of months property went up. The third month it started to go down a bit. People say, "Oh yeah, but what about September? What about when JobSeeker and all these things finish?" Well, do you think the government's just going to pull the plug, having spent all that money, and say, "Oh well, there we go, see you later, I'm off"? That was
you're on your own.
Yeah. So softer landing. So the banks got in, APRA got involved, the banks got involved, the government got involved. It's all been extended to the end of January for the $25,000 grant. Just so much happening. Look, it can be a bit scary because people like certainty. The human brain. There we go. I'm quoting Hilary now. The human brain loves certainty, and in these sort of tumultuous sorts of times, you don't have certainty anymore.
Yeah.
And but I think you just got to. Have I been through scarier times? I've been. They're talking about maybe when things settle down, unemployment somewhere between 7.5 and 9. That's what a lot of highly recommended people are saying. Well, if that's the case, that's okay, because I made good money when it was 11.4% unemployment in the recession we had to have.
Safe as houses.
Safe as houses. Look, exactly. Look, the two necessities of life: food and shelter. And we're in the shelter business, and people have got to live somewhere. They're going to rent. They're going to buy. They're going to rent. Population growth slower, but organically it's still going really well. I expect there to be a spike in natural population growth after all this time people have been spending at home.
Exactly.
But we just don't have.
What are you talking about?
I know, we're all too busy, But okay, we haven't got the international migration in at the moment, so numbers are down.
But there are people coming home as well.
Well, there's people coming home. There's natural population growth. But there's also a lot less happening. There's a lot less building starts. People that in the development area, people like doctors and dentists and Uber drivers who thought they might be developers have probably pulled their heads back a bit now, so that's fine. But people who are a bit more serious like ourselves, then that leaves more space. I've watched it all the time. A lot of people say, "Oh, we're going to have massive mortgagee in possession sales." Well, nobody wants that. The banks don't want it. That's the worst thing a bank wants. So. And so they're running about exactly the same as they were this time last year at this point in time. Yeah, look, some people will get a bit hurt, and it's sad, and I'm not making light of it. There are people that have lost their jobs. There are people who can't keep up their mortgage, but it's very much low numbers, and, and there's continuing help. So I'm fine. I mean, I'm, a lot of people I know, and particularly my community, sort of people I mix with, we're still moving forward. Well,
So for the developers out there, if you were able to say, or say in your community as well, what is the message that you've been sort of sharing with them to provide that level of not confidence or certainty, just to be able to say, hey, let's let's pull away from that panic
yeah.
and,
Well,
and,
first of
and
all,
think rationally about where this is
You talk
going.
about media a lot, eh?
well,
You're like,
I talk about the media
they just don't
a
listen.
lot. Like
Just turn it off.
you don't get. Well, you can use it for entertainment, but like for instance, don't get your don't get your numbers from television. Don't get your numbers off newspaper. Forget the newspaper headlines. Use television for what it is. It's entertainment. If you want to know what's happening on the health front, go to the government websites. But keep it down to 5 or 10 minutes a day if you have to, and then get off it. You'll know all you need to know. Don't listen to all the emotion, all the hot noise. In terms of property, go if it's all sort of numbers. Go where the right numbers are. I just quoted a few there. I just did a webinar this afternoon on a lot of this. A lot of the property stats off most recent ones that have come off CoreLogic, data, also the NAB, and some ABS stuff. Stick to where the numbers are real, not the emotional side of it. With property development, same thing. I mean, some of us are into developments as well at the moment, but if you think of the lead time, I mean, even an average 4 townhouse project in the capital city, it's going to be 16 to 24 months, depending on where it is, before you actually got finished product. So it's not a quick. If you're going a little subby, okay, it's going to be a lot sooner. Will there be any bargains out there? Yeah, there will be a few. There's probably already a couple if you're digging around. But I saw another thing from CoreLogic at the moment too, and they say there's 1.3 buyers for every property that's listed at the moment that's out there. So it's not. And I know it varies from suburb to suburb, because ultimately, we have to scale down to a suburb, not just look at the nation as a whole or capital cities. But there's been a low volume of sales, but a low volume of listings, and that's what it's kept that equilibrium. It's not like when a market has a boom and developers go crazy and build so much stuff, and then the market needs a correction and there's lots of stock on the market, not as many buyers, prices come back. That's the old normal end of a cycle. The property market was in very good state coming into COVID. All the dynamics were right, the fundamentals were good, and so what we've got low volumes of sales, but we've got low volumes of listings. And as long as they're in equilibrium, there's no pressure on downward pressure on pricing. So yeah, that's what I'm telling people: to get away from the emotion. Don't take your advice from those media sources, and just stick with the numbers.
And there's a word there that you said, sorry, Bob, the fundamentals are good. That's a key thing that I sort of often go back to, is like, does it still tick the boxes that it's this, and this, and this?
Yeah, and look, I mean, Sydney and Melbourne had a really good run for several years there, and it had a correction, as it would after about 5 years. You expect a correction. That's all it was. It was a correction towards the late 2017. And there was a bit of a correction. That happened to coincide with the banks getting belted by APRA and the Royal Commission and so forth. So money tightened up. All those things happened. Looked like there was going to be a change of government, and people were a little bit uncertain. All those things were happening around that time. But when that settled down, the election was over. Banks took a deep breath, started to improve a bit. Sydney and Melbourne were picking up again. By March or February, the beginning of COVID, Melbourne had made up what it lost from 2017. It had picked up and it actually just reached a new high. And Sydney was just about on a new high. That's two big cities, admittedly. Perth could probably leave out of it. Poor old Perth's been, getting hammered a fair bit for the last 5 years.
Broken.
So yeah, look, a lot of the fundamentals were there. Money was cheapest it's ever been. Can't believe how cheap money is. It's almost free money. 2 or 3% money. That's free. So yeah, the fundamentals were there. Good population growth. All of that leading into it. And of course, the economic situation was caused by a health situation. So it wasn't an economic situation. Most economic situations would be caused for economic reasons.
Yeah.
This was purely a one in a, how many year? We talk about 100-year floods when we're doing development. This is a one in a so many year sort of event. Yeah, you did talk about the Spanish flu. That was 50 million. They say 40 to 50 million people died back then. I don't know what we hit at COVID at the moment. I think it might be a bit over 1 million. But remember, the world population was 1/5 of what it is now. So multiply everything by 5. That's the equivalent of having 250 million people die.
Hear the numbers going on here?
At the end of the First World War, when another 40 million people died. So I'd rather live now. Thanks very much. I'm quite happy.
And that's where we've got to be able to look at it. Like I said, it's a long-term game. You know, you're not building and selling tomorrow. And if it's something that you're looking to do, like, the opportunities are there. You just have to be able to make sure the numbers stack up and put in as much of those contingencies as you need to be able to buffer.
Yeah, due diligence, which includes crunching the numbers. That's just so critical. You know, when I've seen people fail over the years, and I've seen plenty of people fail, you know, bump into them from time to time. Not people who've done their course, of course.
You still get people now that ring up afterward for help, like they haven't come and done anything, and then they might hear about Bob and reach out and say, what do I do now?
Yeah, but I mean, when I've seen people fail in the past, you can nearly always trace it back to bad due diligence in the first place. You know, they either miss things that shouldn't be missed. You know, there's a tree in the middle of the block that you can't cut down, you know, or but particularly on the numbers, you know. I mean, it's just so critical, getting your feasibility, getting your numbers right. I spend a lot of time teaching people that, because you can make a good deal look bad if you leave some of the numbers out.
Absolutely.
Make a bad deal look good, you mean? Yeah.
Sorry, a bad deal
look good.
There you go, correct it again. Make a bad deal look good. I'd rather make a good deal look bad than a bad deal look good.
So let's talk about, and I'm conscious of, we've probably got about 10 minutes. So if anyone's got questions here, I've got a few people that have made comments. Sean has said he's loving the phrase "on the way, not in the way." I think that was a Hilaryism.
That's a Hilaryism.
Is that the term?
One of mine. Thanks, Sean.
And he says his dogs are slack. Tom says, "Good day, Bob and Hilary." You've got a few fans here. I just want to have a few takeaways in the last few minutes. You know, 3 takeaways for people to go away with that are looking to do something in the current climate. That confidence, even in themselves and even in the market, and the type of support that they can look out for.
Well, a takeaway, and it doesn't matter what you're doing or who you get it from, but always get the best education you can afford. Don't just head out there and think you can learn stuff off the internet or by trial and error. So whatever that is, whoever that is, get the very best you can. If I was playing tennis, I'd like Roger Federer to teach me. So go out there and get the best. In terms of the market, don't get spooked. Get your advice from the right quarters, and just really keep up to pace and know your market well. When we say know your market well, I'm drilling down to even suburbs in cities. But also realise that, you know, you've got a life to live, and there's going to be things pulling, and this is where Hilary's expertise has really made a huge difference to my education business. It's, look, you know, you're going to have partners, you're going to have relationships probably, you're going to have, you know, a lot of people have kids, some people have jobs or they don't like jobs. You know, there's always things pulling for your time. There's teenage kids, you know, 3 kids need to go in 3 directions at the same time.
Someone steals the car, reverses into someone.
Anything can happen. The life must go on, but a big thing I know Hilary's with is prioritising.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do it, if you're going to take on a property strategy, you must prioritise it. You must give it the importance that it deserves, and treat it like a business. So, yeah, that's a couple of my takeaways. You've probably got 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking. I do prioritising is a big one, and I had some feedback on the course info. In fact, people that had done Bob's courses in the past and hadn't done anything, and since just doing the coaching, the platform, had said they realised that they weren't prioritising it. And I just do that rule of 3. You know, pick 3 things that you want to complete this week, and just what 3 things do I have to do every day, and they are the top 3 things that you do. And if you can't do 3, do 1. Like just do 1 thing toward where you want to be every single day, but ideally 3. It's the prioritizing it as important's huge. And I also think that having someone to talk to about it, if it's no one in your world, find someone who's in people like to talk about it. And I just find, people just want to talk about what they're looking at. And I'm the same. Like, we'll look at properties, or even anyone, like we'll jump on Api Data, have a look at something. If you're interested and passionate about it, it's kind of it's an interest as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why, communities like the one you've built too, Cheryl, are important.
Yeah.
You get away from that feeling of isolation. And I think that's really important, because some people just can't deal with that.
Oh, yeah. Life's not a sort of single sport.
No.
It's not just a spectator sport.
No.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like you said about the community, the whole idea was for people to not feel that they couldn't reach out to other developers, that they felt like, I think development has very much, for a long time, been sort of for the unreachables, like, and the side hustle developers who want to break into the game have felt that, what if I ask a question, I just look stupid? And that was the whole idea of this community, not to make them look stupid, but to turn that around and say, ask the questions, ask the silly questions, because I'm sure there's 10 other people, at least 10 other people that are asking the same thing. Because if we don't ask those questions and we're not sharing it, then we're really, it's you're not learning to start off with, you're not building that confidence and around that knowledge base, and you're just not being able to move forward. We feel a bit isolated.
Oh, yeah.
So many.
Yeah. That's one of the greatest things about property, is that, the amount of people I've met. As a developer, I always met people, nearly always professional, but in the education side, I mean, you just talked to, I think Sean's on there, number 3. I mean,
Tom's on.
Yeah.
There's probably more that we know.
Yeah, at least there's 2 people.
Karen Pogge's got to be out there somewhere, for sure.
It's just the whole vibe of property, Property's such a big thing in Australia, isn't it? It's a conversation at a barbecue, those that can still have barbecues. It always is. We're just in love with real estate in Australia. So where else would you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, really lovely words. He says, before meeting Cheryl and her group, we felt incredibly isolated for aiming for what we're aiming at, and we haven't felt that way since. I'm really glad to hear that, and that was the whole idea of being able to empower people and have great people like the both of you, who are bringing enormous value to the wider property community, and sharing your time and your knowledge. So, I think it's fantastic. I'd like to wrap it up with having a little bit of a showcase of what you guys are doing in this monthly subscription. So is that the Accelerator course?
Yeah, it's called the Property Accelerator. So, if you want to find out more, people can just jump on our website, propertymastermind.com.au. But it's a membership site. So monthly subscription, $97. As I said, less than a cup of coffee a day. But on there is 5 different courses, and a pretty active Facebook. I do deal or no deals. I do a couple of those a month for anybody who's ever seen them, where I get a deal that's landed on my desk and I just pull it apart, do all the due diligence, crunch the numbers, and either throw it in the bin or say this thing's got legs. So all of that. Students' projects every month, we analyse. Lots of moving parts on that. Leave whenever you like. It's not a locked-in deal.
But the courses are just like every month there's a little bit more, so it's not overwhelmed. And also we can't give it all away because it's too valuable. So it's just every month you just get a portion, like a portion of each course that you can
in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, because it's a decent amount.
People can get overwhelmed as well, So that's why we're sort of guiding them through the process on the education front. Live Q&As, all the stuff. Yeah, lots happening there, and really affordable. We wanted to do something that was really affordable, I suppose, and that's the model we came up with. We didn't invent that model, but I think it works well with people that can come in. They can learn at their own their own pace. There's lots of different things to learn there. A lot of value-added strategies, not just property development.
And these guys are on as well, thanks. And they jump in and answer questions and support people, both Sean and Tom. So that's really, there's some good people on there that have been around Bob for a long time.
Yeah. So great. Something very affordable. That's why we really launched it. Yeah.
And probably good timing as well, because a whole lot of people were in isolation, in lockdown. And what else do you do? Like we just said, to educate yourself. If you've got a lot more time to listen and learn, it's a perfect time to be able to do that.
Well, that's kind of also why we wanted the workshop while Melbourne was in, while Victoria, was in lockdown. So we're just getting it in that 6 weeks, so they can do that if they wanted. Yeah,
we'll start to advertise that shortly. But we'll have that workshop in the middle of September, 3-day live workshop, live, but not physically in person. For the people that can't get out, which is nearly everybody at the moment, even those that aren't in lockdown can only, you can't travel too far. So that's the way it is at the moment. It's a new normal. It won't always be that way. But
how fast did it become normal?
Yeah, you get used to it, you do, don't you? Human beings are extremely adaptable. That's what I used to say to people. The reason we're, still here as the primary species on the planet is that we are very adaptable.
We get a bit uncomfortable at the start, but when you realise no one's eaten you, you're still alive.
Yeah.
Then you sort of go, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah, fantastic. Well, I loved having the both of you here. Thank you so much again for sharing your time, your knowledge. Again, I will share some of the links about how to find out about your courses and anything else. All your social media links on the Facebook page. But again, it's fantastic to be able to see the people who are bringing huge amount of value and education, so that we can keep getting great projects out, and not be afraid in the current market to be looking for those opportunities as well.
Yeah, no, thanks, Cheryl. We really love being on, having a chat with you.
Yeah, thank you. It went really fast.
Yeah.
It did. It does. It does. And so thank you everyone else that came on. Like I said, you've got your little fan club on Facebook there. They're all going with their little pom-poms. And we'd love to obviously join the community and feel free to share, comment. Lots. We've got probably 6,000 people there now, and always hungry for more sort of.
Yeah, we'll be jumping on that a lot more now that we've had our introduction.
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic. Love it. Well, have a good evening. Stay safe. And I'm sure we'll be having another chat very soon.
Tremendous. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone.